Hey guys, Stephanie Gruen here. Welcome to Ventilation Nation and Integra podcast. This episode is focused on why our work matters. And we have our special guest today, Mr. Ralph Jones. He is with our Integra CE division, and he has a very personal story that he's going to be sharing today. So really, thank you so much for joining today, Ralph. It's such a pleasure to have you. Thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me. I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to come on and sort of get my story out today. So thank you very much for having me.
No, I'm really, really excited. So it's great to have you. Before we kind of get started, why don't you just tell us a little bit about who you are, your background, and maybe what is Integra CE Services?
Sure thing. So my background, I've been in the industry for 23 years. I started a long time ago and worked many years as a technician, kind of worked my way up through the ranks.
Hey, I've noticed a lot of people in this industry have been here a long time.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Mhm.
Not a whole lot of turnover in this industry, and I'm speaking for CE services right now. People tend to get into this industry and stay in it because it's a fantastic career opportunity. So what do we do at CE Services? First of all, CE stands for Controlled Environment, and just a little bit more detail on that. People ask me all the time, for my entire career, people have been asking me, "What do you do for a living?" It's kind of a running joke in my family and things like that because people like joke that I work for like the Secret Service or CIA or something because everybody knows what I do and they know some of the crazy places that I go into. Like some like highly classified government facilities and such,
Oh,
which is pretty typical for our
mhm,
industry. And I think that probably transfers over to the tab side as well.
mhm,
But what do I do? So basically, what do we do? Anywhere that there's a laboratory or a clean room. So universities, hospitals, pharmaceutical companies are a few examples of the spaces that we're working in.
mhm.
And, we can be doing things either on a fairly minute scale, or we can be doing things on a grand scale. And I'll just give you a couple quick examples. Um, so at a university, there could be a lab there. There's many labs in a lot of the universities that they're doing a little bit of research, and they have one piece of equipment in there that they need us to come in and certify annually. Uh, the most common piece of equipment that we run into in
Mhm.
laboratories are biological safety cabinets, and
Okay.
that's a
What does a
specialty.
biological safety cabinet do?
Sure. So I'm glad you asked. It's a specialty piece of equipment that provides safety, right? It's in the name of the actual piece of equipment. Um, it keeps the user safe. So a lot of times when they're doing these experiments, it's an enclosed, they have an open front, and they're working inside of this equipment. And a lot of times they're working with some really nasty stuff in there. Some pathogens and things of that nature. I've been in labs where, they're working on rabies. I've been in labs where they're doing research on the plague, you name it, just, TB, the nastiest and nasty. So they have to take
Hey, I live
precautions.
in Southern California, and there's a facility here called AbbVie, and they do all the Botox. And I understand, I think something like your group would go in and test their equipment. So you're testing the equipment that is being used in clean room environments.
We sure are. So, we want to
Maybe
make
that's your
sure,
elevator pitch, Ralph. That's called an elevator
well,
pitch. Maybe I just helped you solve your 23-year
okay,
problem of about what you
that's,
do.
that's not bad. That's not bad. Okay. I'll take it.
Mhm,
But yeah, that's 100% accurate. We're
mhm,
going in making sure basically
mhm.
that the equipment that they're using to keep themselves safe is working properly. Very
Right.
important, right? But another element to it is that this equipment it's protecting the product that they're working on because in many instances they need sterility or near sterility. Otherwise, it could contaminate their research, right? They're working with cells and things of that nature, and there's, a dust particle gets into one of their plates.
Mhm,
The research is ruined. And many times this research is very costly, so that could be catastrophic.
mhm.
And lastly, it's protecting the environment, protecting the user, but also making sure that the equipment that they're working on contains whatever hazards there are. and typically does all this via HEPA filtration. That's the key element, HEPA
Right, right.
filtration and
Wow.
proper airflow.
So let's go into your story. So you've got I understand, Ralph, that you have a very personal tragedy that's integrated with a lot with what we do or integrated with what we do. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your personal story and share some of that with us now?
Sure. Yeah, and it definitely it does it ties directly into what we're all doing, not only at Seed Services, but throughout this entire company. And it really magnifies the importance of what we do. Like I like to get in front of my people often and just sort of remind them how important what we do is and why it matters and why we should be on our toes at all times and why integrity and quality are values that should be on our minds 24/7. So in 2012, my son Matt was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia.
Oh,
So he had to start chemo immediately. Uh, his his treatment required him to be in the hospital full time, every day, every night, almost for 2 years straight. He had a couple brief stints where they let him come home for a little while, but for about 2 years straight, he was in the hospital. And uh,
who was he?
when he was actually diagnosed,
Yeah, when he was
he
diagnosed.
was 15.
My goodness, I'm so sorry. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. So we're very thankful that Matt didn't have to spend one single night in the hospital by himself. Either my wife, myself, or my son, we were always able to stay with him. Once again, very thankful for that. And as such, the hospital that he was in was Johns Hopkins, which world renowned hospital. I'm sure everybody's
Absolutely.
heard of it.
Yeah.
And that just happened to be a hospital that at the time I was a technician, so that just happened to be a hospital that I worked at. Um, did a lot of work there actually. One of the things that we were doing there was certifying the compounding pharmacies in the hospital and the equipment that was in the pharmacies. And it just so happens that one of those pharmacies that I was responsible for certifying was literally right around the corner from the room where my son was staying. And so I arranged with the hospital to have a staging area for my equipment because I knew I would be going in that pharmacy every 6 months and
Mhm.
certifying it, and I knew I would be there. So, sure enough, I would get up in the morning, I would go grab my equipment, and I would walk around the corner to the pharmacy where they're basically mixing the drugs that are keeping my son alive. Okay, and I'm going in there and I'm ensuring that the clean room is doing what it's supposed to do, that the equipment that they're working in and mixing these drugs, compounding these drugs is doing what it's supposed to do. Something, obviously that matters, right? And at that point, I mean, it's my son. It's my son. And they're using this equipment once again to make drugs that are keeping him alive.
I have
So,
every hair on my body standing up right now. That's such a powerful story. Uh,
well,
yeah.
here's the thing, Stephanie. I implore everybody to give this a thought for a second because I can assure you that everybody that watches this podcast at one point or another has had a loved one, a friend, a family member, someone they know in the hospital that's, that's likely been in the same situation, and it could happen to anybody at any time, right? Thus is life. I mean, so that's why I implore everybody to think, just stop and think for a minute. Hey, it could have been, my dad, my brother was in the hospital a couple months, a couple years ago, whatever the case may be. And yeah, he had that treatment where, they were mixing drugs or whatever the instance may be. Wow, I hope the person that was testing that clean room or that equipment was doing the right thing and was focused on quality and integrity because we all should be at
Mhm.
all times. So
Mhm.
important.
So, Ralph, what would happen if somebody went in and did the testing of these clean rooms and they didn't do a good job or they didn't what would that look like? How would that demonstrate?
True, I shudder at the thought, I really do, but it's a very good question, Stephanie. To sort of break it down a little bit more, what we're doing in those pharmacies. So we're going in for one, we're going to test the clean room. We're going to make sure that the HEPA filters are doing what they're supposed to do.
And what's a
Look,
HEPA filter?
it cleans the air basically
Mm,
without getting into it too much. It takes
okay,
dirty air and makes it clean
okay,
via some very specialty filtration. So, we're testing those, make sure like they don't have any holes in them or leaks or anything like that. So any sort of contaminants can get into the clean room. We're testing the airflow to make sure that, the airflow dynamic is correct and it's not allowing air from outside areas to enter the clean room, air which could potentially be contaminated.
mhm,
Because, and especially in these environments, um, where they're mixing cancer drugs, as you know, the people that are taking these drugs in many instances are, their immune systems have been depleted. So
right,
the simplest thing that you and I, we could get something and we wouldn't even know that we had it because our body's just going to fight it off. Well,
mhm.
the patients that are getting these treatments, chemo and such, the slightest thing could literally be deadly. Something, any sort of contaminant, a mold, a bacteria, uh, pseudomonas, things that you and I typically don't have to worry about. So obviously, if there's dirty air getting in that clean room, it could potentially get into the product that they're mixing. And the same thing goes for the equipment. I mentioned biological safety cabinets earlier. That's a key piece of equipment in pharmacy clean rooms, amongst others. But we'll use that as an example. If the HEPA filter's leaking, um, if the airflow isn't proper and contaminated air is getting in there, well, whatever they're working on, that contaminant is going to get into the product that they're making and then be injected directly into the patient's bloodstream.
Oh my
So
god, okay,
I think that puts it pretty well into
yeah,
perspective. So if somebody went in there and they didn't have integrity, and let's just say the HEPA filter was leaking, and they just said, "Oh, you know what? I don't feel like dealing with that right now.
mhm,
I'm just going to pass it." Or the airflow wasn't proper. I don't feel like dealing with that. Might have to come back and repair it.
mhm.
I'm essentially going to shut their operations down. Um, they could literally be deadly.
Wow,
That's how serious what we're doing is.
yeah. We do a lot of testing, adjusting, and balancing in a lot of hospitals and universities and pharmacies also. And so, when we added the CE service piece where we're actually testing the equipment in the controlled environments, um, it really made a special kind of a service packaging for
Mm,
this very special industry. I mean, healthcare is a phenomenal industry. It's never, it's always going to be here. We're always going to have people that are sick and aging population and our families and loved ones spend a lot of time in these hospitals. So I think, what we do and what you do is really special. And I know a lot of the things that we do on the testing, adjusting, and balancing side, which we call tab, has that same, we test for
yes.
the airflow quality, we test in operating rooms to make sure that, the air is clean and there's a lot of different things that we do there too. So it's a pretty special package. So Ralph, I understand that you had the opportunity to be able to work while your son was in the hospital. And I think that was a very special uh that was such a blessing for you at that time. So I understand your son has now passed.
Yes. Yes. We
Mhm,
lost my son on
mhm.
July 16th, 2014. He Yeah, yeah.
Sorry to hear
Thank
that.
you. Thanks, Stephanie.
Yeah, I would really
And
I don't. So I know I know you've been doing fundraising and you have fundraising pages and there's things that you're doing to raise awareness. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
yes, yes, I would love to. Thank you again for the opportunity. So, you know, as I'm yeah, my wife and I, we put together and host a fundraiser every year. We've been doing it since actually we started this fundraising effort while Matt was still alive. He's actually the one that started this. So
Really?
yeah, it was near and dear to his heart. He's a fantastic kid, always thinking about others. So we're carrying the torch on. It's something that we'll never let go. Not only to raise awareness and funds for research, but to keep Matt's legacy alive. Very important to us. But our the cause that we fundraise for, it's LLS, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
Okay.
So LLS, it's a tremendous cause. They are responsible for contributing to the research of 70% of bloodborne cancer drugs that have been approved by the FDA. So, they're out there. They're doing a great job. You know, it's a great cause,
Mhm.
and we're glad to do it, because ultimately we don't want to see families going through what we had to go through. Don't want to see anybody going through that. We'll do everything we can to make that possible.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, what we're going to do, Ralph, is at the bottom of the screen, you see a link to the fundraising site. So if this story resonates with you, if it's something that you feel like, you folks out there listening want to be a part of or contribute, please you can click on the link below and do whatever part you'd like to be a part of. So, Ralph, this has been, again, I still have every goosebumps all over my body. This is such a wonderful, thank you so much for sharing. And I know it's not easy, sharing a personal tragedy, with all these folks listening, but what we do matters. And just, it was such a great example of why what we do truly matters. So, Ralph, thank you so much. And we'll look forward to seeing you again in the future. You have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks again for
Thank you.
joining.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I would also like to say that if anybody does feel compelled to donate to this cause, which is, it's a very worthy cause, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you. Thank you.
All right. All right, Ralph. Well, we will it was great having you, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks.
Bye, Stephanie. Always a pleasure.
Bye-bye.